Hello, and welcome to our third video in our free Yoga Basics training. In our first video, we covered, is yoga right for me and what kind of yoga should I be doing? In video 2, we covered yoga blocks, props, props and accessories, blocks are included, and today we're going to cover some basic poses, modifications, and variations for every body. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you pictures because it will be easier for me to speak to them and point them out as opposed to doing them on camera and trying to show you and talking. So we're going to dive into some slides and check out some different variations. So the first pose I want to cover is downward facing dog. I get a lot of questions about this pose, like, am I doing it right? Or frustrations like, mine doesn't look like that. It's okay that your downward facing dog doesn't look like the person next to you. This is totally normal. What we're shooting for here is strong arms, not dumping all of our weight into our wrist, so actively using our fingers and our hands to hold ourselves up, reaching our hips up toward the ceiling as we intentionally press our chest toward our thighs. Your feet do not have to be flat on the ground to reap the benefits of this pose, and your legs don't need to be straight. Instead, work toward a flat back and strong arms versus flat feet and straight legs. You'll see in the first picture, this is my typical downward facing dog, but you could also keep your knees bent and your feet up and really focus on using your hands and your arms to lift your hips up and your chest back. These are some other variations. So bending the knees, and then also you can use blocks under your hands to help support yourself if going all the way down to the ground is uncomfortable. So using blocks. Use the resources you have to access this pose. It doesn't have to look like everyone else's downward facing dog. Over time, you will build strength and the pose will change on its own. Next up is chaturanga. So it's a fun word to say, by the way. You can try chaturanga. This is basically a high plank that lowers down to a low plank. Some key things to keep in mind here are strong core, engage all of your muscles, and hug your elbows into your ribs as you lower. So this is not a push-up. Your elbows are not out to the sides. They are hugging in to the sides of your body as you lower. So once you're in high plank, you can slowly lower your knees and then work on your low plank. So you don't have to keep your knees up the entire time to practice this pose. Sometimes it's nice to keep the knees dropped and then really focus on your low plank. You can also use blocks as a guide for feeling how low you might be going in order to keep that 90-degree angle. And keep in mind, you just don't want to drop onto the floor. You're holding yourself up by engaging your core and your arms, not just falling as you lower. Our third pose or variation to go over is poses that require you to create a bind behind your back. So I want to use wide leg forward fold as an example for a pose that does call for creating a bind behind you. And what that means is you're clasping your hands behind you and then moving into a pose for a deep shoulder stretch. For a lot of people, it's quite difficult to clasp their hands behind them, and this is where I'd like to offer up the option to use a strap. So you hold your strap behind you wherever is comfortable, and then you slowly start to move into your pose. You'll experience a great shoulder stretch, and you'll be able to do the pose or experience the pose without feeling like you have to awkwardly reach behind you and try to grab your hands. Our fourth pose is half pigeon. So half pigeon is one of my favorite poses, but one that I see being done unsafely all the time. This pose is great for the hips, but not if your hips are not ready to be put into the position. Here I want to offer up some different options you can try on. So the larger picture and pigeon, it's confusing. The larger picture is half pigeon without any props. The second picture is half pigeon with a hip, with a block under my hip. So basically what I've done here is add that block for some support because my hip might not reach all the way to the floor. And if your hip doesn't reach all the way to the floor, then your hips are going to be misaligned and you're not going to experience the entire pose because you're too busy trying to force your hip to the ground as opposed to just meeting it where it is. So the block will help you meet your hip where it is in space, and then you can ease into the pose. And then the third bottom picture is seated pigeon pose. So you basically create a figure 4 with your lifted foot and you stay really active in your feet and your legs as you slowly lean into the stretch. So all of these variations give the same benefit of hip stretching. There are just some different approaches to try on if you're not quite ready for the unassisted pose, basically. So next we have child's pose. Child's pose is another pose that I see people uncomfortably forcing themselves into. So instead of being miserable here because you're not quite sure why you can't sit on your feet, which is normal, you can insert a block to sit on and let it support you as you ease into the pose. So you don't have to feel so uncomfortable of like pseudo holding yourself up somewhere in the air because you can't sit on your feet just yet. The block will be there to support you and kind of fill in that gap. And lastly, there's cat and cow. So this is a great pose combination to warm up and loosen your back. It feels great and you can do this daily. I definitely do this daily. As you exhale, you'll round your back and look toward your belly button. So that's the first picture. And then as you inhale, you'll arch your back and look up toward the ceiling, which is the second picture. You can go through these movements nice and slow and use your breath to guide you through them. So inhaling and exhaling with each movement. So now I've got a little video for you showing you Sun Salutation A. So this is a basic flow or combination of poses that you can do anywhere, wherever you are, whoever you are. You can wake up and do like 5 of these every day, and that can be your yoga starting out. This is a great guide in just starting. So in this video, I'll show you how to flow through it and then also places where you can implement props and experience the practice. Sun Salutation A. Mountain pose, forward fold, halfway lift, place your hands on the mat, high plank, lower down to low plank or chaturanga, up dog, down dog. Breathe here. Inhale. Exhale, step to the top of your mat. Halfway lift, inhale, flatten your back. Fold, exhale. Mountain pose, reach high as you inhale. Exhale, forward fold. In this pose, grab your strap and place it under your feet. Use both ends to pull your chest closer to your thighs. This is a great modification if you can't quite reach the ground and you want to work toward that. Remove the strap and place your hands on your mat. Step back into high plank. Slowly lower your knees to the ground, keeping your toes tucked underneath of you. And hug your elbows in, lower down into low plank. This is chaturanga modified. Slowly scoop your chest through for up dog and down dog. Step to the top of your mat. Halfway lift, inhale. So here you could grab your 2 blocks and place your hands on them to find a flat back. You could also use 2 blocks for this entire flow. So why don't you keep those here with you, and we'll fold, exhale, mountain pose, inhale, leave your blocks on the ground, and fold, exhale. Halfway lift, flat back. Now place your hands on the outsides or slightly behind your blocks and step back for high plank. So this is going to help you use your blocks as a guide to slowly lower into chaturanga. You'll basically hug your elbows in and slowly lower until your shoulders touch the blocks. This creates a 90-degree angle and also gives you some support. So we'll go through that again. Come back up to high plank. Adjust your hands now that you know where the blocks are. And slowly lower onto those blocks, hugging your core in, squeezing every muscle. Scoop up into up dog. Down dog, exhale. So that's basically how you can use a few props throughout a Sun Salutation A, which is a great place to start every morning if you want to get moving, or if you don't want to pull up a video and try to figure out what you should do today. Sun Salutation is your starting point. Cool. So what's next? So far we've covered in video 1 yoga types and styles and trying to find one that suits you. Video 2, we covered yoga props and equipment and understanding which ones are which and what you need to get started. This video covers basic poses, how to modify them, trying to avoid injury by using those props to assist us. Let me know if you have any questions in the chat box below, because this video might confuse you a little bit or leave you feeling uncertain if you've experienced something different. So I can definitely help you understand what you may have experienced before if you've never done yoga, how to get into any of these poses. The 4th video that's coming tomorrow is how to deal with self-doubt and in comparison as you start this journey. A lot of that will likely come up for you. So I'm excited to cover that. And then video 5 is my step-by-step system for actually starting yoga. Yay! How exciting. Like I said, let me know if you have any questions about the poses or the previous videos we've covered in the chat box below. I'll be there to answer them. And stay tuned for video 4 coming to your inbox tomorrow.